Danny DeVito as the Penguin, like,
Holy cow.
yeah, so gross and scary looking. And he's like the quintessential Tim Burton character in this. Like,
And he's a huge pervert too, which I don't remember
Yes.
that until I watched it again.
it's almost like his main, like, driving force in this movie, almost like he's putting the pin on like this young girl's chest. Him and Catwoman have this kind of like partnership where they're going to work together to kill Batman.
Yeah.
And they defeat Batman and are having like a moment on the roof where, like, the second it's over, Penguin shows up with 2 wine glasses or champagne glasses, and he pours champagne and he starts throwing these lines like, all right, now that we've got rid of him, let's...
Yeah. Mug out. Welcome back to the Movie Dads podcasts. We are your hosts. I'm Howie.
I'm Kyle.
That's Kyle. Kyle, it's episode number 10. We have hit
Let's go. I love that
double
you keep track now.
digits.
keep count for me.
Hey, on my laptop, every file it says the name of the movie and then episode number. So I have them all. I know where I'm at. Keep it track.
9.5. 10. I give it a 10.
It's a 10. Today is episode 10. So we're doing a twofer, which we haven't done for 5 or 6 episodes, or we haven't done 2 movies in a long time.
Because they're long as hell.
Well, yeah, we're long as... Last week was the longest episode because I separated the top 5 segments. Top 5 Spider-Man villains, 21 minutes. Top 5 Peter Parkers, 43 minutes long. Yeah, that's...
And we were only talking about my second favorite superhero. Guess who's today is about?
Today we're talking about Batman.
Let's go.
So if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like, give us a subscribe, leave a comment, all that fun stuff. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Podcast Index, social media at Movie Dads Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.
Smash the like button, comment, disagree with us, let us know how wrong we are, even though my lists are right. Howie's can sometimes be great. He had some great thoughts last week. I guess this wasn't your top 5, but when you were talking about just like the core DNA of what makes Spider-Man, it's like he's gonna try, even if you know that there's 0% chance of success, he's still gonna try because that's what they do. And it was like, that was such a great point. So great.
That's what Spider-Man does. That's his character, right?
Yep.
So today we're talking about the greatest superhero of all time.
Of all time.
Everybody's favorite superhero. If he's not your favorite superhero, he probably is, and you're just not admitting it. We're going to talk about Batman. So in honor of next week's episode, which is The Flash, which I'm super excited about, this week we decided we're going to do Tim Burton's classic Batman from 1989 and the 1992 sequel, Batman Returns. I watched them back to back in one 4-hour and 15-minute setting.
Love that.
Yeah. So you
really got a good contrast.
I do. I have a good, and it was last night too. So it's fresh. It's all fresh in my mind. So I'm pretty excited.
I knew we were going to do this episode, and honestly, it had nothing to do with doing this episode. For whatever reason, I just had the bug like 2 weeks ago that I was like, I want to watch Batman 89 because it's been a while, and jumped in, and I watched it twice. Not in the same night, but like watched it one night and then I watched it again the next night, just because there's like a lot of things that I didn't see. We'll obviously dive into the movies more. And then did basically the exact same thing with Batman Returns last week. And man, you got to watch them once a year. They're once a year movies. They deserve it. They totally do.
I agree.
I totally do. So
I agree. I just like Nolan's trilogy. I think they're all worth a once a year viewing.
I can agree with that. It's like they just throw that trilogy up there with Lord of the Rings, and I just booked out your next 3 weekends, folks.
There you go. Yeah,
So-
don't enjoy the outdoors. Stay pale.
Yes.
Stay in your
Who needs
basement.
Mm-hmm.
Who needs it?
That's
Vitamin
right.
D. All right, so we're movie dads. We have movie kids. Funny story. So Reagan wanted to watch Batman 1989 and Batman Returns. And she's seen them before, but it's been a few years. She's 12, so it's probably been a few years, so she doesn't really remember them, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that time, this is this is funny to me. So we've talked before how she's a big horror movie buff, right? So she sees Michael Keaton. She knows who Tim Burton is. She loves Tim Burton's work. She knows who Michael Keaton is because she loves Beetlejuice. She loved Beetlejuice when she was like 2 or 3 years old. Like that was one of her favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of kid she is, right?
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson first comes on the screen and she's like, I know him. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't know what you would have known him from because he really hasn't done a lot in recent years, right? Like his classic movies were 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, right? And she goes, The Shining. And I'm like, yeah, there you're right.
Nice.
I'm like, yes, there you go. That's where you knew him from. Very good. And then, we watched Batman Returns. She knew Danny DeVito was the dad from Matilda, which I thought was hilarious. She didn't believe for a second that was Danny DeVito when he first showed up on screen. Because there's no way that's him. Like, that's 100% him. Michelle Pfeiffer was the Wasp's mom from Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh my God.
That's where she knew her from. But the best one to me, again, think about the movies that Michelle Pfeiffer's done lately, right? Yeah, it's been.
I totally get it.
Michelle Pfeiffer hasn't done a lot lately either. Christopher Walken shows up on screen, and this was the one that really got me. Oh my gosh, he's the dad from Hairspray that's married to John Travolta. And I was like, I'm out. I can't do it. I can't do this.
Oh my God, Reagan, come on. I get that. But now, from now on, I hope that you only refer to those people as the characters from this movie. So, or these two movies.
She wasn't wrong. She got them all right.
Yeah. I mean, that is also impressive. So
it was pretty fun.
Oh my God. I love that. Actually, so Batman 89, when I watched that the other 2 weeks ago, Parker was around for that one. Again, Parker seems to be around for the Batman movies, and Grayson was playing video games or something. But Parker thought that, and the movie was a little bit dark and not really for kids, in my opinion. Either of them aren't really good. Not that they're not good for kids, but they're not kid movies. But Parker thought when that Prince music kicks in and the Joker starts painting all the paintings and stuff, he just thought that was the funniest thing. He lost his mind when there's a moment where the dude does 10 handprints on one painting. He just thought that was the fucking funniest thing ever. So anyways, we've been listening to a lot of the music playlists from that movie. Just that Prince jam has been playing a ton. So much so that now we get in the car, that's what Parker asks to listen to. Usually it's play the Master Chief song, Halo. But this time he's play that Batman paint song. And so we'll put that Prince song on. So
and when your kid's asking to listen to Prince, you're doing things right.
It's a good point.
He talked about my daughter listening to Queen a few weeks ago. You're talking about your son listening to Prince. Hey.
Yeah. We haven't quite hit Purple Rain yet, but we're slowly making our way there.
The best.
Great movie, great album.
Doesn't even matter how good the movie is. The album's the best part. That's awesome.
The movie was good too? Question mark?
Not as good as the album.
Oh, 100%. You were accurately correct there. Okay. Let's jump into my most excited segment of the week, our 6 to midnight. These are the things that get us up in the morning this week. What we're excited about. Mine's kind of short. I know
Vitamin
we've got
D.
Jesus. Yeah, we are children. We are total children.
It's fine.
We've got 2 movies to do, so I was like, I'm going to be really short and sweet with mine because I want to jump into the movies. But 2 things just kind of confirmed that heading to Comic-Con this at the end of this month. Technically, it's Fan Expo, but it's in Denver. It's Denver's Comic-Con. It's June 30th through July 2nd. It's Friday through Sunday. Me and my buddy Matt, Mr. Bojanski, he's always commenting and giving us good feedback on this show. He and I are going to go. I'm probably going to cosplay. Don't know what I'm going to do yet. Obviously, it'll be some type of Batman-related character or something that I already own that I can turn into a cosplay suit. So I've gone one time as like Superman, where I had a Superman shirt on with like a suit on, and I just had like my shirt opened up with the super, so like Clark Kent-y.
Yeah.
I don't
know.
What
Facebook Marketplace is still selling that $2,000 like theater
Ninja Turtle
quality Ninja Turtle costume.
Like the Nightmare Fuel Ninja Turtle costume.
It looks like a movie.
20 years old.
It's pretty cool.
It actually, I almost texted you like, can we just go halvesies on this thing and we'll share it?
My fat ass ain't fitting in that costume. No way.
Oh, okay. Comic-Con. If you have an idea of what you think I should do or could do for my cosplay, keep it PG. Comment it. What do you think? And then my other thing that I'm excited about, and it just kind of works out that this is the episode on Batman 89 and Batman Returns. I just recently finally downloaded the comic Batman 89. For like 3 or 4 years, people were posting like fan art of like what it would look like if like Alex Ross, who's like a really famous comic book artist, like if he were to do like the art for a comic book where they kept the Batman like 89, the Keaton Batman story going. And for a long time, it was like pitched to DC. They didn't want anything to do with it. And then finally in 2021, they were like, all right, let's do it. So they released it's 6 issues. It's short and sweet. I think technically right now it's dormant. I don't know if they're going to keep going with it. They absolutely should. But it's called Batman 89. The art looks directly ripped from the movies. And the cool part about it is the screenplay writer for both Batman and Batman Returns, Sam Hamm, is the writer for this series. So,
excellent.
So it's essentially like you could look at it as like this is what the sequel movie would have been, and it picks up
almost canon. You would think of it as like a canon sequel, right? Because it's the same, right?
Really. And the art looks like it literally just looks like it's ripped from the movie. So it's not like some weird art style. It looks like it's awesome. Mm-hmm. And it does kind of what everyone wanted to happen, at least now that it's been a couple of years, but like not a lot of people know that Lando Calrissian was Harvey Dent in the first Batman. And there was a plan for him to be Two-Face in one of the movies, I believe Batman Returns, that they just didn't have the room to make it happen. But Batman 89, the storyline basically picks up with that story of Harvey Dent becoming Two-Face. And it's Michael Keaton Batman versus, I keep calling him Lando Calrissian. I should know. What's his name? What's his real name?
Billy D. Williams.
Billy D, but he's Lando. Everyone calls him Lando.
I mean,
but it's Keaton versus Lando, and as Two-Face, and it's awesome. They bring back Michelle Pfeiffer, which we'll talk about. That technically she survived at the end of Batman Returns. So
sure did.
It's an awesome book. It's a short read, 6 issues. They're a little bit more extended issues, so it's worth the time. You can download it on Comixology if you have the app. But yeah, it's a great book. And if you watch these 2 movies, you should go get it because it will continue the story.
Excellent. That's great stuff. Awesome. My 6 to midnight this week was obviously I'm a Marvel guy. So We got a little info this week. We got our first picture and confirmation of the new Captain America movie title. Originally, I think it was going to be called New World Order. Was when it was announced. It was called Captain America: New World Order. We now have a new official title, which is Captain America: Brave New World. Similar, but I'm sure there's always when you change things like that, there's always meaning to it, which I'm sure we'll find out. The earliest set photo was shared by Anthony Mackie. I'm sure everybody knows there was a series on Disney Plus. It was Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and it's basically about new Captain America, and how Anthony Mackie takes on the mantle in the last episode. He becomes a new Captain America, so he's no longer Falcon, now he's Captain America.
Yep, which is from the comics, ripped from the comics, which is good.
Right, and so I like Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson. I like Anthony Mackie personally. Obviously, he didn't take the super soldier serum. That's actually a big point of the TV show if you didn't see it. And then the suit at the end of the show was very white. Like, it was a lot of white in it. Kind of like, Falcon's comic accurate suit was very white and red.
Yep.
It's kind of like that, but it was white and then more blue and red, right? Like the red, white, and blue stars and stripes. The new suit looks very like Captain America Civil War. Like it's a darker blue. You can see it in the photo. He's wearing a very dark blue suit, like almost head to toe, kind of like Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Civil War was. We got our first just picture, and it's just Harrison Ford sitting in a chair. But Harrison Ford's taking on the role of Thunderbolt Ross because William Hurt passed away. So Harrison Ford's taken that role, which I think is awesome. I mean, I like William Hurt. I think William Hurt did a great job in that role. Unfortunately, he passed away unexpectedly a few years ago. I think the last time he was on screen was in Infinity War, and no, he was in Black Widow. He was in Black Widow and I think he was Secretary of the State by then, as General Ross. And so then the other things that we do know about the movie is, I don't know if we know exactly who the main villain is, but we know Samuel Stearns is going to be in it, which I think this is cool because it is Tim Blake Nelson, who played Samuel Stearns in The Incredible Hulk, the Edward Norton Hulk movie. So they're bringing him back from that to reprise that role, which, if you remember, kind of at the end of that movie, it looks like he's turning into the leader, the serum drips into his head and it starts growing and stuff. So I think that's kind of neat, but we got our first picture of that. It's May of next year. That movie comes out. That's the summer kickoff movie for Marvel. So that'll be exciting. I'm excited for that one.
Love that you were able to find a way to get Marvel in a DC episode.
Hey man,
I love that.
Do what I can.
I did see that stuff dropped. I did not know Harrison Ford was in it. I did see the picture of his new Captain America costume. For whatever reason, when I saw that news broke that there was Captain America news, in my head, I was just immediately please tell me Chris Evans is going to be Captain America again in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
I love Anthony Mackie. I think he's going to be great. I think
do too. It's just a different version.
For sure. And I love that they're doing comic book accurate stuff. That was a thing that happened in the comics. It makes sense with the story that has happened with the Avengers movies. That is the next take. But man, Chris Evans was a friggin' good Captain America. And it's a bummer that we don't get to see him do that again.
Chris Evans is a likable guy. He played that role really well. I mean, moved on. Obviously the multiverse opens everything. We could see him again in some aspect. There's been rumors talking about maybe they'll do a one-off show of him returning the stones at the end of Endgame where he takes them all back. Cool. That would be a cool one-off series, I think. So that would something like that. But anyway,
it's hard to bring him back. I would say it's hard to bring him back.
That character, because obviously
Cap.
Yes, and he's aged out, right? We know he's an old man. He got to live the life he never thought he was going to, which is awesome for him. But we know, multiverse and all that, there could be a different version of him that's very similar, right? When Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars comes out, I mean, would anybody be surprised if Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans had a cameo in that movie? No, because we know it's the end of all the multiverse stuff. There could be different versions,
Yeah.
So we'll see.
That's a good point.
But that's my 6 to midnight this week. So yeah, sorry I had to get a little MCU and do a DC episode. We're doing DC again next week. It's okay.
Yeah.
We can wedge it in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Palate cleanser, if you will.
Yes.
All right. So that takes us into our main feature, the You need to see these movies this week. We're going to talk about Batman 1989 and the sequel 1992's Batman Returns, both directed by Tim Burton and starring Michael Keaton as the best, if not one of the best Batman on film.
The Batman, yes.
Yeah. So you watched them recently, unprompted. We talked about we were going to do this episode, but you were just like had the itch, want to watch some Batman. I watched them last night because I hadn't watched them in a while. So, man, they're both great movies. They are very well done, well directed. For the time they came out too, I mean, man, they were way ahead of time. There are a couple things that have aged, and you can tell. And the biggest one for me is the costume. Like you see it now as you've seen different iterations of Batman and things like that. Remember, there was the big deal like when in The Dark Knight when Christian Bale for the first time had a head that could turn. Remember that when in the new costume? It looks so hard for Michael Keaton to move around in that suit, and
especially.
Go ahead.
I'll say, especially in Batman. Well, Batman Returns is like the suit for him, just behind the scenes story, that it was like way more difficult in that one. In the first movie, the cowl is like a lot more rubbery, so there's a little bit of wiggle room. Yeah. But in Batman Returns, they kind of like tightened it up a little bit. So I think that's kind of my problem with 89. Not really a problem. I actually love the costumes more now.
I do too.
Like I just bought that bad boy, which I pointed out in 3 straight episodes. That's Keaton 89 Batman.
Yep.
I really want a fucking Batman Returns because Batman Returns Batman costume is like my favorite, right up there. But like he couldn't move, so like the fight scenes in that movie in Batman Returns, and I really noticed it watching it this last time, was like he full on, like when he's ducking fights, he just bends over.
Yeah. There's so many like camera cutaways. I could just picture like Tim Burton directing it, and there's like 18 cameras around one fight scene because they have to keep switching to make it look like he's doing realistic like punches and kicks and stuff, because there's no way he was moving around in that.
Can move. So
no, it was good.
I like the Batman Returns costume, like all the figures and models and stuff that come out. It's always 89. They just released, they're doing like a Hot Toys Batman Returns, which like I have never bought a Hot Toys, which is like screen accurate, movie accurate. They're like $500, $800. I'm pulling the trigger on this one because it looks freaking amazing. And they're really different. A lot of people don't, like when they think of those movies, they don't realize how different the costumes were.
Right.
89 was very much kind of like Batman Forever and even Batman and Robin, which I can't believe we mentioned that in this episode. But without the nipples, obviously. But it's it's like it looks like muscles, like there's abs and like pecs. When in the Batman Returns, it's very much the abs are like armored plated kind of looking things. It's hard to explain, but I like both costumes a lot. I think they look great. There's a kind of a goofy moment where at the end of Batman Returns where Keaton pulls his cowl off and like to show he
tears the rubber like it's a piece of paper. Yeah.
But it's very well known. It's infamous because like they're showing him and he's got the eye black in his cowl on, and they cut away and then they cut back and he's got no eye black when he rips his mask off, which like that was something that Battinson people thought was really cool. It's like he just wears the eye black because that's what they do. So I love these movies a lot. They're really fun. Obviously, they're 2 very different movies.
Yes.
Tim Burton didn't want to come back for another one. He did his one and he was fine with, and he was done. But basically the studio was like, we want you back. We need you back. And his like, basically he was like, well, you have to let me do what I want to do with it. And so that's why the second one was so much more darker. which personally I liked. I liked kind of the dark vibes. I think McDonald's, looking back, it was a little upset about how dark it got.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
But yeah, they're both a lot of fun. I am interested to hear kind of your thoughts between the two, like where growing up, where were they for you and things like that.
Growing up, I mean, like, listen, when I was a little kid, like, we had Superman. We had Christopher Reeve's Superman. That's all we had. We didn't have anything else growing up.
Yeah.
That was it until Batman came out, right? And like, I remember watching Superman on TV or all the time on my Betamax, like Superman was it. That was my introduction to superhero movies until Batman came out. And it was like, it was amazing. Like, they have the most famous actor in the world playing the Joker. They have the guy that played Mr. Mom as Batman, and everybody was up in arms about it, right? Like, you have a comedian playing Batman, and it worked so well.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael Keaton, he's so believable as Batman. Like, it's funny when you see him walking around in his regular suit, like as Bruce Wayne, and you're like, I can't believe that's Batman. And it's not that he plays a bad Bruce Wayne. He doesn't. I think Christian Bale plays a better Bruce Wayne. But Michael Keaton's Batman is outstanding. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Even the way his face is framed in that cowl, like, he just looks like a badass.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know why, he just does. And he does it so well. The first thing that like, I had forgotten or like thought about when the movie started up was like just the world, the way Gotham looks. It's so, in the first one, it's so industrial, and it's so like, it's dark, it's dingy. It makes you think like exactly like what you think Gotham should look like, right? Like, it's this huge city, but it's all like, none of it's fun. Like, it's just, it's the opposite of Metropolis in all ways, right?
You literally just hit, like, that was going to be my number one, like, starting point for the talking about these movies, was like the thing that Tim Burton did, especially in number one, was like bringing Gotham to life. Like, this movie literally set kind of the stage moving forward of how people view Gotham, this like neo-noir, like kind of old school. Now, obviously it was in the 80s, so there's a little bit of an 80s vibe, but like, this movie really like inspired Batman the animated series. Like, even the theme song is like directly ripped. But like, they took what was in this movie and like ran with it in Batman the animated series. We wouldn't have had that without this movie. And I think, like, just for me, like, you're right. Like, the whole place, it feels dark and gritty and gross and dirty. And like that, there's, even the first like 5 minutes when he, in Batman 89, where he fights those two.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, when the family's trying to hail the cab, right? Like you're talking about. And just the like, even the ironworks, like over the street, like just the way it's built into the buildings, even the art museum where Joker and Vicky Vale meet later on, it's just the way it's designed. It's awesome. Yep.
I agree. I totally agree. And it's interesting because there's like a huge difference between the movies. And like, first movie, it very much, it takes you all these different settings, all these different places. Batman and Bruce Wayne obviously are a big part of that movie. It's kind of my only, I wouldn't call it a gripe because I love both movies, but like watching one right before the other, you really notice in Batman Returns that like, there's not a lot of Batman in it. There's not a lot of Bruce Wayne in that movie. There's a lot more other characters, which is a good thing. And again, I love that movie and I think they did it right. But like Batman 89, you get a ton of Batman. You get to see the Batcave. There's kind of a goofy moment where like Alfred straight up just like lets Vicky Vale like go into the Batcave, and Batman's like, what the fuck? And like it was something that a lot of people didn't have a problem with, but like talked about as like kind of a like, what the hell? Like Batman's supposed to be this super secretive person.
But
And
that was
then,
also after the part of the movie where he was gonna tell her. Like he goes to her apartment to tell
yeah,
her, and the Joker
yeah.
shows up, right, and shoots him, and he has the metal tray, like to, and then he runs
Want to
away.
get
Like,
nuts?
yeah,
Let's get nuts.
that
Yeah,
scene,
yeah,
right? Like, so that
yeah,
had already happened. He was already gonna tell her. Like,
yeah.
but
It's a good point.
yeah. To touch on that part though, there is that part in the second one.
Yes, that's what I was about to say.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Where he's like, they're talking about like being secretive and like,
Yep.
which is kind of cool. They clearly they changed up how to get into the Batcave. It's not just an easy switch and go. They actually moved it to the aquarium. But like as he's rolling up his sleeve and going to open the Batcave door, he full on like calls Alfred out like, "Oh yeah, we just let Vicky Vale into the Batcave."
Yeah, this coming from the guy that just let Vicky Vale into the Batcave.
Yes,
and he's like, "Oh,
that's
hey, I just turned around. Hey, Vic."
Yeah, yeah, that was really the main reason why I brought that moment up, because I thought that was cool. That
Hilarious.
one, they put that in the second movie. But two, other than that, if you take that scene, at that line and that scene out of Batman Returns, these are totally two different movies. They're not related to each other. They're not a sequel to each other.
That's really, other than the returning characters.
Yep.
I think he mentions his relationship with Vicky Vale one other time when he's like when he's on the couch with Michelle Pfeiffer, ex-girlfriend,
about, like,
right?
the duality,
and he does say her name. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right, and we were talking about the set design, how much the first one was all industrial and things like that, and then the second one, like most of the settings of the second one are in the plaza, like Gotham Plaza, right, like where the Shrek's department store and stuff is. And you talked about on a previous episode, like the whole Christmas scene. Like how it's set during Christmas. There's the tree lighting, and it's awesome. So but it seems like it's almost, I don't want to get this right, but like even the part in the park where Penguin's parents throw him into the water, and it's almost wild. Like it's almost like the setting's magical.
Yes.
Like I don't know how to describe it, but it's like it's in a fantasy land.
Yeah. Well, and they do it. Tim Burton does like an excellent job with what they did with the score. I mean, obviously Tim Burton didn't do the score, but like
Danny Elfman is Tim Burton's guy, and he does all of them.
Yes, and it feels like Edward Scissorhand kind of world more. It feels very much more like 100%. One of those movies. I
was going to say almost like Nightmare Before Christmas, even like it has that vibe to it.
Yes, which it's that's like kind of a perfect word. It's like magical. So
yes.
Yeah, they're two very different movies, and that's probably why I like them both so much, because like it doesn't feel like you're getting the same movie again. It feels like you're getting a totally different movie. Yeah, so Keaton's Batman is freaking great. The bad guys in both of them, the villains, is Rogues Gallery is awesome. This is like the only movie that really gives Joker kind of a backstory, or like where like who he is, with Jack Napier.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of comic books have kind of used that name for kind of the background of Joker, but really in the comics, it's what makes Joker so scary and so like interesting is that he has a million backstories. None of them are real, none of them are right. It's like we don't know who he is. So, but I liked this Joker was very much like his backstory was very much the same as the Joker in Batman the Animated Series. Once they introduced the Mask of the Phantasm, it's essentially kind of the same thing. He's part of the gang, but part of the mafia, gangsters.
Mm-hmm. And the Dark Knight kind of led to that, right? Like Heath Ledger's Joker kind of gets that crime boss kind of takeover feel.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on them making Jack Napier the person who killed Batman's parents?
That was honestly like when I first saw the movie as like a kid and I was growing up, I never thought twice about it. I just thought like as a kid who didn't know like the ins and outs of Batman, I thought that was very like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like this is a very movie thing to happen where like it's a full circle moment. You know, have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? And like when he says that, it clicks. Batman knows this is the guy who killed his parents. Now being an adult and now knowing like you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to have that.
It feels forced.
It feels very forced. It's I guess it creates a little bit of like some animosity between the characters, but like you didn't need it. Like the reason why Batman is like it's such a his story is so interesting and so powerful is because he's from a powerful family. His parents are really powerful people in the city in a good way, in a positive way. And it doesn't matter how powerful or good you are. Some Joe Chill, some Joe Schmo off the street could just walk up and shoot you and end it all. And so like there isn't, and that is really kind of to me, like there isn't some big overarching, you know, conspiracy that happened to his parents. It's just they got mugged and they got shot and killed and that happened. And like that's way different than like I got to find the guy who did it and like that's what this is all about. And it's not about that. It's about, you know, keeping that from happening to other people and stuff like that. So
I thought that was my bit. I think it's my biggest beef with the movie. It almost feels like studio interference, and that happens too often. Like I would wonder if that was in the original script, because you would think somebody that's writing a Batman story that knows who Batman is and writes the character well, you wouldn't think they would force that in there.
Yeah,
you would. That almost sounds like something where the studio's like, "Oh, let's make this more interesting. Do this."
For sure.
But I don't know that. I'm spitballing. You know, go ahead.
Oh, go for it.
No, I was going to go back to a point you made earlier, and I just thought of this. Like it just popped into my head, and this is off this subject, but this is about the costume. Have you seen the documentary Val about Val Kilmer and his throat issue where he can't talk anymore?
I haven't watched it, but I know I've seen a lot of clips from it, and
he talks about Batman Forever. And as soon as they were done filming and the movie had just come out, they wanted to do the sequel immediately. They wanted to do Batman and Robin immediately. And he said the number one reason he turned it down, because they did ask him,
was because of the suit.
Was because of the suit.
Yeah. I did see that interview. I didn't see the movie, but I saw the interview.
Sorry, I just popped into my head and I was like, I wanted to mention that.
No, I mean, and there we go. We get Val Kilmer, Bruce Wayne, Batman Forever thrown in the episode because
I'm glad I actually
enjoyed that. I am too. I didn't realize how close the cowl in Batman Returns is, like from chin up in Batman Forever. Like, really, honestly, Batman Forever's Batman suit is the same as 89's, but clearly they fixed the bat symbol on his chest and they tightened everything up. They like skin tightened it up. But
yeah.
Anyways, I also love that freaking Batman is wearing Jordans in his. Is it Jordans or was it Air Ones? What is he wearing? His shoes in his costume are Nike. They're Jordans.
Gosh, man, I don't know what you're talking about. I missed
that. Oh, bro, dude, this is one of the coolest things ever, and I'm gonna get fucking roasted for not knowing it off the top of my head. But Batman 89 and Batman Returns, the shoes that he wears are literally. They're Nike. Are
they like Air Force Ones?
Yes, they are. God damn it. They're Nike Air Trainers. So if you go Google it and look at it, literally they are like painted black Nikes, like straight up Jordan shoes that have
you aren't kidding
padding over the tie. I didn't know that until a couple of years ago. And for whatever reason, like it's changed the movies for me. Like I just think
that's funny,
infinitely cooler that he's rocking.
They are
Nikes.
Straight up trainers.
Batman wears Nikes, so he's not an Adidas guy. Anyways, so we're kind of just bouncing all over the place with the movie.
Well, I'm glad we're talking about them both at the same time. I think that's the right way to do it.
I agree. Villains, I like Joker a lot, and I think his Joker was great. The clown side, the fun, the goofy, the crazy. Like, I love that. He plays it perfectly with
Yeah.
that mindset.
He does.
I love Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman.
Yes.
Meow. Talk about a sexual awakening. Whew. This movie, Catwoman, is fantastic.
Man, and
But
Kim
not
Basinger her smoking hot too.
Yes, Vicky Vale is. Honestly, I feel like Vicky Vale is the most throwaway character out of everyone in all of the movies. Personally,
Man, I don't know, because they kind of give her that backstory, like she's a steamed journalist that takes all these, goes into these really tough areas, Corto Maltese, and takes these heartbreaking photos, and
love that they threw that in there, because that Corto Maltese is from the Batman: The Dark Knight Returns comic.
Yes,
there's a big war going on over there.
Mm-hmm.
Superman is fighting for Team USA, and
fighting
anyways,
the Russians.
I loved that they had that in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Especially now knowing like what I know, like when I hear those things, I'm like, oh, you do get Batman. You know what you're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good. You're good. We're this is good. Like, we're bouncing stuff off it. I get what you're saying about her being a throwaway character. I think they gave her a little bit of meat and potatoes. You know who the most like worthless character is? Robert Wool in the first one, though, as Knox.
Oh, Knox. They brought him back for shit. What was it? Gotham. I think maybe it was Gotham, or maybe it was like the DC Titans or something. But they did like a multiverse. They did a multiverse episode, or a couple episodes, and the way that they put Batman 89's world in the multiverse was they just like clipped over to Knox, like trying to get a story or something.
Really? So, I didn't see that. That's funny.
His character was super dorky.
Yes.
When him and Vicky Vale, they go to Wayne's like party, and they're trying to like figure out that. Actually, honestly, that would probably be my biggest gripe with this movie, was that this reporter, who has clearly been a reporter in Gotham a long time, Knox,
has no idea what Bruce Wayne looks like.
Yeah, they don't know who fucking Bruce Wayne is. Like, are you kidding me? I get
Vicky Vale, you could see it. Yeah, because she's not from there.
She's not from there. But Bruce Wayne is like the richest man on the planet. Like, he's the world knows who Bruce Wayne is. So when they were like, who's this Wayne guy? He's so weird in this creepy old giant mansion. It's like, what? Everybody knows who Bruce Wayne is because his parents were killed, and that was like a big story for Gotham.
Well, then at the beginning, the very, very beginning of the movie too, where the mayor's having the press conference and he's introducing Harvey Dent, and they're talking about taking down Carl Grissom and all that. Yeah. And they have the table there, and Commissioner Gordon sitting there, and the mayor and Harvey Dent, and then there's an empty seat with a placard that says Bruce Wayne right next to the like
like he's a big
everybody's gonna know who he is.
Yeah. So when the fucking news reporter doesn't know who Bruce Wayne is, I'm like, you are never going to be the top of the game at your news station, guy. But yeah, he definitely is a throwaway character. I don't know, the like dichotomy, or like not the dichotomy, but like the chemistry that Michelle Pfeiffer and Keaton have as Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle, but also as Batman and Catwoman. It's amazing. Like, they did such a good job of capturing both kind of who they are. Like, when they're together as just Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle, like, they really dive in about the dichotomy of dual personalities and what and what that's like. And yes. And then that's basically their connection, is as they're talking, they're like, oh, we both, we've not been able to connect with people because we have a different side of us that has not been able to be something that we could have with someone else. And so they really start to feel like, wait, we actually do have something here. And then when they have to run out because they're going to relight the tree, they're going to do a relighting of the tree ceremony, because the red what's it called? The Red Triangle Gang is technically the name of the.
Yeah, I think something like that. Yeah.
That's the name of like the clowns that the Penguin essentially is running. He's the king of them, or like the head honcho, but they didn't know Penguin was involved. Anyway, so they ruined it at the very beginning of the movie. So as they're trying to, as Max Schreck is trying to push Harvey or Oswald Cobblepot as the new mayor, they kind of goad the current mayor into relighting the tree to be like, if you're the real mayor, you would actually do the tree lighting ceremony.
Correct.
They do it so that they can go and steal or kill.
They're framing Batman.
Yeah, they're framing Batman. But it's just interesting because Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle, they're on like a date at his house. They're starting to like make out because they're really vibing, and then they both realize, shit, we both have to be somewhere. And they've run separately, trying to like make it like, hold on, I'll be right back. And they both go to Alfred one at a time to be like,
yes,
make something up as an excuse for me leaving. And God damn, I can't remember what Alfred says, but like she says something like, come up with like a sonnet or something. And he's
like a sexual sonnet or something like that.
Yeah, one has just sprung to mind.
But
like, and then there's just like this cool moment where like Selina is driving her car, like her beat up shitty car, and she's like grabbing all of her costume, trying to put it on, while they're also clipping to like Bruce in his badass bat cave, putting on his freaking bat suit. Anyways, I thought that was cool. Their little like moment of going back and forth, and then
even the
also
moment
they're like,
the moment where they realize who they are is pretty good too.
Whew, what great cinema! So it originally once they go to this tree lighting ceremony, they end up, they don't know it, but they leave this, they ditch each other to go to this event to then fight each other at this event, which they don't know. Mm-hmm. And as they're like going back and forth and fighting, Catwoman gets the upper hand. Basically, the police show up and shoot Batman, and he falls onto a different building. Catwoman jumps on top of him and has like a moment where she's talking with him. And as they're like having this like weird, we just are fighting each other, but now we're having like a sexual tension moment. Mm-hmm. Batman sees mistletoe and says like, mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it. Catwoman says it can be even deadly, or a kiss can be even deadlier.
If you mean it.
But then if you mean it, yes. And then they come back to it later when they're at this dance ball party.
They're at Max Schreck's costume party.
Yes. And Bruce Wayne and Selina are dancing, and then like basically the lines get flipped with each other. And, you know, she says mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it. And then he says a kiss can be even deadlier if you mean it. And then they both are like,
yeah, they're having this conflict moment, right? Because she talks about how she needs to find Max Schreck. And Batman's like, oh, you know, or Bruce Wayne's like, oh, you two have a thing. And she goes, ha, 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 no. And she pulls out like a Derringer. And she goes, nah, I got this for him. And he's like, what are you doing? And he's holding her tight. And she does, you know, the mistletoe thing. And then, you're right. Cinema, peak cinema. Let's go.
Yes, where they're like, holy shit. No one said, they don't say like, oh my God, you're Batman.
No, but they're both, again, just their facial expressions are like, holy shit.
So I freaking love that. The love interest, the chemistry was way more palpable in Batman Returns than in Batman 89. But I do like that they had, like, that's very comic booky of Bruce Wayne to date Vicky Vale. Like that happens in a lot of different canon stories. So, like Danny DeVito as the Penguin, like,
holy cow.
Yeah, so gross and scary looking. And he's like the quintessential Tim Burton character in this. Like,
and he's a huge pervert too, which I don't remember that until I watched it again.
It's almost like his main like driving force in this movie, almost like he's putting the pin on like this young girl's chest. Him and Catwoman have this kind of like partnership where they're going to work together to kill Batman. and they defeat Batman and are having like a moment on the roof where like the second it's over, Penguin shows up with 2 wine glasses or champagne glasses, and he pours champagne and he starts throwing these lines like, all right, now that we've got rid of him, let's get it on. And she's like, I'll vomit like if you look at me. And then immediately he just hooks her up to a helicopter umbrella and kills
Get
her.
out of here.
So yes, like, oh, you're not gonna do me?
I think
later.
I was the part where they decide they're gonna make him run for mayor, right? And he's in that giant unitard and he's eating that fish, right? And he comes down the stairs.
Looks like an animal.
Yeah, and the one guy, there's the guy and the gal, and Max Schreck's like, these are your two. He's your image consultant. She's like your campaign manager or whatever. And the guy's like, not a lot of reflective surfaces in the sewers, huh? And he does the at least there's not blood squirting out of my nose. And they're like, oh yeah, and then he bites the guy's nose, which is just so out of nowhere.
Yes.
And then everybody goes back to work, and the gal goes over. And she's sitting on the desk, like attending to him. And Max Schreck's like, listen, like she's just here to help fill the void. And he's like, I'd like to fill her void.
He just
constantly, like, what?
He's constantly trying to get at people. He's been down in that sewer for so many years that
he's got needs. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. It's like from Wayne's World. Schwing, schwing, schwing. Like anytime something walks by, that's where his mind is at.
He's literally a dirty old man in the Batman Returns. Which
it works for the character. Like he's an animal. He's a monster.
It does. Exactly right. I like that iteration of the Penguin too. He's this deformed monstrosity that like lives in the suit. Like, every other version you've ever seen, that's not what it is. It's wild.
I do like the Batman the Animated Series, at least before they switched over to like the animation style of Superman. Mm-hmm. The Penguin was basically like directly ripped from this movie in terms of like what he looks like. He had like the long hair, he was short, had the same face.
Yes.
But it was more of like if Penguin had run for mayor and then become mayor.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. They had that in the movie because that's a big part of like a lot of comic book stories, even a lot where he is the mayor. So
correct. Right.
In Batman Earth 1, which is a really good story, where basically Earth 1 is like a different version of Batman, but it's very grounded. It's like if Batman were just a real person in the real world, this is what it would be like. Penguin is the mayor in that. And it's a great story. So anyways, I love the Batmobile in these movies.
That's my favorite. It's my favorite one.
It's my favorite Batmobile. I just told you I spent way too much on this bad boy.
It's awesome.
It is so freaking great. I love having it on my desk. I'm going to do something cool with it. I just haven't figured it out. Mm-hmm. I love like in Batman Returns, like the Penguin kind of commandeers the Batmobile and takes it over. That's probably one thing that I thought was kind of goofy. It's so hilarious, funny. So they apparently these freaking circus people can outsmart Batman, but they figure out how to remote control take over the Batmobile. But what I think is so funny is that when they're diabolically coming up with this scheme, they also go, well, we need to control it by having like a little kiddie ride version of the Batmobile for the Penguin to sit in. So he's in like
has like a coin operated box.
Yes, it is literally like those. They don't have them anymore, but back in the day, kids, there was a coin operated like car rides you could ride out in front of grocery stores, and this is like directly ripped from it. So
it's exactly right.
So I thought that was freaking hilarious. It's tough to in terms of like, and we're going to jump into our top 5 at one point of this episode, so I won't really go into like which one's better or whatnot, but they are both very different movies, but I love them both equally.
Exactly. They're direct. It's a direct sequel. They're within a couple. It was only 3 years in between the two movies. Same director, same writer, same Batman, same world. two totally different movies. Like you said, like
Mhm.
very Batman focused. Not a lot of Batman, a lot of, supporting character focus. Very
Yeah.
industrial, dark, gritty world, like magical. We said it's magical. Very different, but at the same time, they both have that darker tone than the other ones, the campier versions.
Yeah.
Whereas like Nolan's were more grounded in reality, these were more comic book. They were more like it's more of a different world.
Mm-hmm.
Very different movies. The music in the first one is totally different. You got Prince doing the songs, which is so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Like they're two totally different movies, and they're very close. Like they are.
Yeah.
They're very close. And
Yeah.
we've talked about this last week when we talked about Spider-Man, how we've been pretty blessed with our Spider-Man actors. Overall, like for Batman's, been pretty good. There's not really been a lot of duds. We can argue that Val Kilmer and George Clooney both had really shitty movies. Could they have been better Batmans? Probably. We talked about Andrew Garfield and the way he's viewed as Spider-Man versus his movies. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not, he didn't get a fair shake because of it. Boy, the way they've cast these villains in these Batman movies has been pretty awesome too.
Yes.
We've had multiple versions of the Joker on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Nicholson, right? You can even go back and say Cesar Romero in the old 60s TV show was a pretty decent Joker.
Yeah. Old paint over my mustache.
Paint over my mustache. I'm not shaving shit.
It off. It's very Nicholson Cavill
was,
of him.
Oh, no, that's not Henry's fault. Jack Nicholson was great. Heath Ledger was great. Won an Oscar.
Phenomenal.
Say what you want about the Todd Phillips, Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie. He was phenomenal.
I liked it.
He won an Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
Very small moment in the Batman, the Pattinson one, with Barry Keoghan as the Joker.
If you count the extra
cameo
footage that they released. Yeah. Well, I guess he was in the very end too, but they did drop an extra scene.
Right. So we have a lot of good Jokers. Mark Hamill might be the best one. Maybe. That's another discussion. Penguins have been great. Catwoman's been great. Like, listen, we're lucky with what we've gotten because there's been a lot of shitty superhero things out there.
Yes.
This has been good.
Yes. We won't talk about Jared Leto.
I don't know the decision making behind that. Jared Leto's a weird guy anyway. Like, we know he's a weird guy.
Weird direction.
Did he design that? Or was he told that was his design? Because remember when that first image came out and it was like, man, that looks cool. It looks totally different. I'm kind of glad they're doing something different because I don't want the same old Joker.
But I hope that damaged tattoo on his forehead isn't real. Was kind of where everyone said.
Yeah, but then it was like, when you finally got him, he was only on screen 10 minutes and it was like, ugh.
Yeah, he was just weird. And I didn't like. I thought it was cool they were bringing him back for the Justice League Zack Snyder cut,
and then that was weird because it was
weird, and it was just weird.
The post-apocalyptic thing. Yeah, it's all weird.
I was actually really excited for Jared Leto's Joker, and
I was too.
I'm not.
At least he got to redeem himself with Morbius.
No, anyways, a lot of people I think are starting to rethink they're Jared Leto, but
yeah. Okay, we're an hour into this episode.
Yeah, we gotta.
As much as I love talking about these two movies, we gotta get to it. I'm with you. They're level playing fields. They're two totally different movies. They're both equally as good. I think
if you haven't seen it in a long time, go watch it.
Go watch them. Yeah, that's the whole point of the segment, right? Like you need to see both these movies. 1989 is probably revered more because it was loved when it came out, and then Batman Returns was kind of like, what the shit are we watching? Like back then.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm going to give both of them the same score. I'm going to give them both 9s.
Oh, I can respect that. You already know what I'm going to say. These are both. If it's a movie that I say that you should watch this once a year, it's got to be a 10. These are 10s. Like these are movies I could put on. At any day or night and be like, I would watch start to finish.
Totally fine with it. Listen, we had this discussion last week. You kind of gave me a hard time. You gave me a lot
that's
of
why
hard
I'm not
times.
giving-
You
that's
gave me
why
a
I'm not giving-
lot of hard
that's-
times last week.
I'm trying to be really nice this
You-
episode.
You said something last week. You said, like, listen, there's different movies I would give a 10 to that some of them I think are better than others. That's the way you do your scale. That's fine. I don't
Mhm.
think there's anything better than a 10. That's the way I do my scale. Like, a 10 means there's nothing better than it. Like, if I have my top 10 favorite movies of all time, maybe they're all 10s, but that's because maybe there's one I like a little bit better, but I feel like they're all equally as good.
Mm.
And that's the way I do my
makes
rating
sense.
system, right? Like
I get
that's
it.
all
Yeah,
I'm
makes sense.
trying to say is if I rate a movie a 10 and I think it's better than another 10, well, then technically they both can't be 10s. Because one, in my mind, one would be a 10 and one would be a 10.1. But if 10 is the max, that's why I'm doing 9s and 9.5s.
I had an
That's all I'm
argument to
saying.
that this week. I don't know why. Like I think it was as I was listening back just to see how like goofy or how much I was actually mean to you last episode. I had a great rebuttal to that of like mindset, but I think maybe you just touched on it. Like,
but it just has to do with your mindset, right? Like I remember when we did our very first episode, and you're like, you're not going to Portnoy this thing, and I even referenced it last week. Like, this isn't Barstool Pizza Reviews, where like the highest score you're ever going to get is like a 9.4, right? Like
feels like it. That's all I'm saying.
At the same time, and again, I don't want to give freaking Dave Portnoy any kind of clout here because. I understand that kind of rating system though, because like,
then you want to listen more.
There has to be something like if there's something better than it, then it can't be the max number. And that's all I'm saying.
Sense.
That's all I'm trying to say.
You need to start bringing in decimal points then, not just 0.5 or flat. Okay. You need to do 9.75s, 9.
I'll go back and rewrite all of them.
I'm just kidding.
All
right.
No,
Let's jump
Batman and Robin, 10.
Barf. Absolutely not.
All right, so we're an hour in. We got our movie reviews down. There's only one segment left. There can be only 5.
Only 5. This segment. I don't have to think about this. The only thing that I had to think about was like how much things I wish could be in this top 5.
Sure.
These are lists that I wish could be like top 15s because there's so many good things out there that I feel is rude to discredit or not to mention, or people are going to like be like, oh, why didn't you mention this? And be like, fuck, that's right. Okay. So our first only, there can be only 5 this week is the first one is our top 5 Batman story arcs or stories that are not movies. So could be comics, could be TV shows. Really, it was just comics or TV shows was kind of what we went with. So actually, I don't know. I'll hear what Howie has to say. Okay, there you go. These are stories like if you are any type of Batman fan and you haven't listened or read or know these stories, you should go and watch them. One of the like biggest things that got me into Batman was like a YouTube video. Batman comics was a YouTube video of like top 5 Batman comics of all time that you don't know about. And like listening to those really helped me jump into comic books. So
before you get started, I want to say one thing. When you're the discussion you're having with the people that are watching this, listen, there's a lot of people out there that are like comic books are for nerds or comic books are for kids. Batman has some of the greatest stories of fiction written. I read a lot of books. I read a lot of highly acclaimed books. Mm-hmm. I can still sit down and I can read a graphic novel that's a Batman story arc from the 80s or 90s or whatever. And they're great. I'll also tell you, if you like comic book movies and you haven't watched any of the DC animated universe movies, you need to do so.
Yes, we're going to get into them.
The DC animated universe movies, in most cases, are better than DC movies, live action.
Yes, facts. That is
with
fact.
With the exception of a lot of the Batmans.
Yes, but everything else, the Batman cartoon movies are better than any other DC movies that have come out. So
even some of the Superman movies, they're all great. Like the Justice League movies, the animated ones.
Facts. They're good. Here we go. Here's something else to know for those that aren't about the comic book life. All of those Batman movies that you love so much, every single one of them are based off of, or a lot of them are ripped from these comic books. So,
Absolutely.
and most of the time it's, the movie took a little bit of that from that story, but they didn't do it all, or they didn't do it right. Or, but a lot of it is from these like seminal stories. I'm going to jump into it. My number, well, I'm going to honorable mention. I won't say anything other than their names because I don't want to waste our time. Honorable mention, top Batman storylines, The Dark Knight Returns from classics. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And I'll just leave it at that with my honorable mention. Number 5, The Red Hood. Batman, The Red Hood, or Under the Red Hood, I think is the name of the movie, but the comic book, basically, this is the story of when way back in the day, there was the Death in the Family comic where basically they let the fans vote if Robin should die or not. This was the second Robin. This was Jason Todd. For whatever reason, fans didn't like Jason Todd Robin. So they voted to kill him off, and they did. So they killed him off in the comic books.
Yep.
And then they brought him back basically as a bad guy, kind of like the Punisher in the Red Hood story. But this story is so like crucial to Batman's stories. And because like when Robin died, when Batman couldn't protect Robin, he died, it literally like changed everything for Batman and how he acted. And, he couldn't save the one person he was supposed to protect and was supposed to be under his wing. And so when kind of this new bad guy shows up and starts like killing people and doing stuff, but is also kind of able to beat Batman through a couple different things. Like he's able to cut through his bat ropes. That there's a line between Nightwing, Dick Grayson, and Batman where he's like, did that guy just cut through your rope before it went taut? Like nobody has blades or knows how to cut those. No, because Batman has, I guess, special ropes, but only certain people would know how to cut them. And so like slowly through the story it starts unraveling as Batman starts to realize like it's potentially could be, Jason Todd or my Robin that died, and he could be alive. And so he ends up finding out that obviously it is Jason Todd. And it's just an incredible story. The comic is amazing. They did do an animated movie. That is one of my honorable mentions for our next list, just because the movie is incredible. It's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, up there with my favorite animated Batman movies. If you have never watched a cartoon Batman movie, you got to go watch that one. It's a freaking awesome story. So anyways, that was written by, I didn't put who wrote the Red Hood story down. Damn it. Let's jump into number 4. This is from the Batman the Animated Series show. This is the only thing that's not a comic on this list. It's the storyline of A Heart of Ice. This is basically the episode where you meet Mr. Freeze and you find out Mr. Freeze's backstory. This was the first time where they gave Mr. Freeze the backstory of Nora Freeze, and that actually he's not really a bad guy. He's just doing all this because he's trying to save his wife and bring his wife back. And so like the show just does an amazing job with this story arc, and it has essentially set kind of the Mr. Freeze backstory moving forward for comic books and stories. So
or that crappy live action movie.
Or that crappy live action movie where Arnold says Jill. A Heart of Ice is just it's one of the best Batman stories, especially in that show. I'm pretty sure that the episode or episodes for Heart of Ice won awards as well. So that was by Paul Dini. Paul Dini, it was like kind of the main writer for most of the Batman animated series. Incredible Batman writer. Go check out his stuff. Number 3. This is Now we're in my top 3 favorite stories that I do read once a year. They are incredible. Number 3, this is written and art by Jim Lee. Hush. Batman Hush is one of like the coolest stories. It's way more modern. Basically, Batman you find out Batman had a friend that was exactly like him named Tommy Elliot, who also ended up losing a parent, but they're like basically 2 rich kids. Tommy grew up to become Thomas Elliot, the number 1 surgeon in the world. Batman grew up obviously to become Bruce Wayne, who, rich billionaire playboy. But like the story is cool because someone's coming after Batman. Batman doesn't know who it is, and they know all about him basically. And so the story has a ton of different rogues galleries in it. Like Killer Croc is in it. Superman is in it, where Poison Ivy controls him and he fights Batman, and it's like a really cool story arc between Batman and Superman where they fight each other. Catwoman's in it. The Riddler's in it. There's a ton of characters in it. They did try to do an animated movie of it, and it's horrible because they changed the main bad guy. The
movie's fine up until that point.
Yes, the movie is actually fine until they try to pull a fast one on you. Problem with some of the DC movies is Gotham by Gaslight is another perfect example. They want to do something where they, I know you've already read this book 400 times, so we need to surprise you. We need to do something that you don't know what's coming. And they changed an ending or change a character. Don't do that. Like, the Riddler is a seminal character in the story of Hush because he is basically the person helping the new villain, Hush, find out kind of who Batman is and how to take him down. But in the movie, they have Tommy Elliot in the movie, but he's like a catfish. He's not really the bad guy. It's ends up being the Riddler, who is like changed into Hush, and it's just like they fucking ruined it. Just do what Dark Knight Returns, the cartoon movies, did. Just do directly from the book, start to finish, and you'll make a classic.
I felt like there was a lot of elements of that book in the Batman.
Yes, there was a ton of stuff. Yes, What was something from the book that you thought the Batman did really well?
Well, I thought, like the movie The Batman, the Pattinson version with the portrayal of the Riddler, in that he kind of almost has like it's the Riddler Hush persona in the movie.
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
Like, and isn't his name even isn't his name even Elliot?
No,
or the dad, his dad.
Yes, his dad. Yes. So, which I actually kind of thought was honestly, I thought that was kind of a cool thing.
It is.
Was because it was like basically live action. We got kind of a nod or a tip of the cap to Hush. I thought that was actually kind of a cool thing. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Number 2, a lot of people think this is like the best, story of all time for Batman. The Long Halloween, number 2. It was hard to not have this at number 1. It's honestly my favorite writer and artist on it. It's written by Jeff Loeb, arts by Tim Sale. They do some of like the best comic book stories of all time. Superman of all seasons, Spider-Man Blue.
And there's 2 sequels to that too.
Yes, there is. The
Dark Victory.
Dark Victory is it? That's Robin in that one.
Yeah, and then the third one's a Catwoman story.
Yeah, the third one was.
I don't remember what that one was.
It's throwaway. Yeah. Actually, yeah, the Dark Victory is a great companion piece for The Long Halloween. You don't have to read it, but if you do, it's a good continuation of it. The Long Halloween is what?
A fun fact too. I'm pretty sure Jeff Loeb was the showrunner for the first season of the TV show Heroes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Do you remember that
surprising? Yeah, it was a
Save the Cheerleader, show. Save the World.
Yeah, people liked that show.
The first season.
Yeah, I was just going to say the first season. Everybody liked the first season, and who was on it? The Long Halloween is just freaking cool. It is an awesome story. Basically, the Dark Knight that everyone loves, Christian Bale's The Dark Knight, is almost directly ripped from The Long Halloween. The dynamic, the relationship between Harvey Dent, Commissioner Gordon, and Batman in the movie is literally what directly ripped from this comic. They even have like the same scene where they're all on the roof at the bat signal and they're talking about basically like what they have to do to take down the mafia. The Long Halloween is just this really, really cool story. There are some of his like rogues galleries in it, but it's really not about, this story is not about like Batman's crazy villains. It's about him trying to take down, basically like the Godfather, like the underworld mafia of Gotham. And it's just, Carmine Falcone is basically, the Godfather, like the opening scenes, like the opening couple pages, it's almost directly ripped from the beginning of the Godfather movie. They're at a wedding. Bruce Wayne is there. He's meeting with, the Godfather. But it's just this cool, it's a mystery. It was a really long kind of series that went on for essentially a year, right. But basically like the main part of the story is every holidays there's someone gets killed. Throughout the story, they're all kind of related to the mafia and different families, between the Maronis and the Falcones. And it's awesome. Batman's trying to track down kind of who done it. There are some rogues villains in there, like Poison Ivy's in there, Joker's in it for like one book.
Yeah, they all like the whole rogues gallery kind of is in there at some point.
Yes,
but like you said, they're not the main part of it.
Yeah, they're not really the main seminal. They become
Harvey Dent more than anybody.
Harvey Dent, Dark Victory really kind of opens the lid on like the rogues, because then like Harvey Dent ends up taking over as like he becomes Two-Face, and then he takes over. Basically, he becomes the boss of all of the rogues galleries at the very end. Long Halloween basically is the story. It is the story of like Harvey Dent becoming Two-Face, but the whole movie, The Dark Knight, is essentially ripped directly from this movie. A lot of other Batman movies take different moments from this story.
Yes.
This is a book that I suggest for people to read. Like, I've got friends I used to work with. They were book people. I tried to have them do this as like their book club of the month book. Like, you don't have to be a Batman fan or a comic book fan. This is just an awesome book. The art is really different. It's great. Number one, this comic book, it just so happened to be like the first graphic novel that I bought as more of an adult to really jump into Batman comics. And I just happened to get lucky. No one told me about it. I just happened to pick this one on a road trip back from St. Louis. For me, like, I never really wanted to jump into comics because like there was so much story and so much canon that I'm like, I don't even know where to start. I don't want to start at the end or I want to start at the beginning. And Batman New 52, or not Batman New 52, but the New 52 DC comic line had kind of rebooted all of DC's superheroes. So it was kind of a good place to start because it was basically the beginning of their stories, which is the reason why they do it. All of them were horrible except the Batman line. But the very first, the first volume is Batman, the Court of Owls. The Court of Owls is it's by Scott Snyder. The art is by Greg Capullo. I freaking love them together. They are just an awesome dynamic duo. But this story is like the Batman. Like, one, his costume's cool, but it's very detective. It's modern. Like, the whole story is Batman, like, he is Gotham. He knows Gotham, from top to bottom. He knows anything and everything about it. Nothing is new to him. And then starts to find out that there's actually been, this, legend of the Court of Owls is basically like a higher ranking, kind of like the Illuminati of Gotham, and that they've always been around Gotham. And and that they know everyone and everything, and they pull all the strings. And Batman's like, no, that's not true. I've already looked into it before when I was younger, and I proved that they weren't real. But then things start to happen that prove that they could be real, and that Batman doesn't know everything. And it really does a great job of like highlighting the detective, world's greatest detective side of Batman. Um, and it's a new villain. The Court of Owls are great, but they have basically there's like a nursery rhyme that's like, don't speak of them, don't talk about the Court of Owls, or they'll send their Talon after you. And then there's a new bad guy called the Talon. Also, Owl Man. They end up kind of turning the Talon into an Owl Man at the end on the second book. But anyways, super cool villain. Basically, it's like the Illuminati who have their own Batman who's called the Talon that is better, bigger, better, faster, smarter than Batman. And they end up kind of beating Batman. They capture him. They put him in this maze under the city. But the cool part about it is like Batman ends up finding out that like all of the Wayne buildings throughout the city in Gotham that have been built over 100 years, they always leave like the 13th floor as like an open floor because that's like a rule you do. Like you don't have bad luck. But what Batman ends up finding out is that Talons have made those like their own kind of bat caves like over the years. And there have been Talons at all times. So it's an awesome story. They totally screwed it up when they did the animated movies with it. They rushed it. They basically
Batman versus Robin.
Yes, they melded two totally different Batman stories and just like shoehorned that Court of Owls story into it. They just fucked it up. But this book is perfect, and it's
nice.
Well worth the read. It's amazing. I went on forever. I will stop talking.
Oh, that's good. That's good. But we only have one. That's the same.
I know which one it is. I love that. Bring it on.
Okay. Good list. I like it. I'm familiar with all those stories. They're all great. They're just not on my top. But
love it.
They're,
let's go.
Like you said, if we had a top 10 list, I think we'd have a lot more overlapping. Okay, so my number 5, I cheated a little bit. It's a JLA story, but it's a Batman story. I did Tower of Babel.
Yes,
is number 5.
Great story.
Listen, it's fundamentally a Batman story. Tower of Babel basically is somebody starts picking off the Justice League members one by one, and they're trying to figure out how somebody has come up with a plan to figure out all their weaknesses. And it turns out it's because Batman has a file on everybody because he had contingency plans in the event that any of them had gone rogue, that he knew he would be able to stop them.
Yes.
It's an awesome story because there's a lot about how Batman thinks, and it's about Batman's persona, and it's about trust with the JLA and Batman. And obviously from Batman's side of the story is like, listen, if anybody ever got control of Superman, not saying that Superman would go crazy, but if anybody got control of him, I would need to know how to stop him because he's unstoppable. And he has it basically for every Justice League member. I think it's Ra's al Ghul in the comic book is the one that turns out has the files and is the one that's taking out the Justice League one by one. They made a movie, a DC animated movie. The movie's actually really good, but they completely changed like who it was.
Still good.
The movie's called Doom. Justice League Doom. And that was actually, I had actually seen the movie before I read the book, because when I saw the Doom movie, I was like, this is an incredible idea for a story. And that's when I found out it was based on a JLA series. And I was like, I need to read that. And anyway,
JLA is the Justice League of America. For those of you who don't know.
Justice League of America. But fundamentally, it's a Batman story because it's all about him and the way he thinks and stuff. It's a cool story. Like you should definitely give it a read.
I love that you have that on the list.
Number 4, and this is it. I don't know if I'd say it's one of the greatest Batman stories, but it was like right when I was getting into Batman comics was Nightfall. So
interesting.
Yeah. So Nightfall introduced Bane. The character of Bane. It's also like it's where basically Bane breaks Batman's back, and Batman Bruce Wayne has to quit being Batman. And who is it that takes over? Is it
Azrael?
Azrael takes over as Batman. Obviously, he's much. He's meaner. He's darker.
Mhm.
He does a lot of damage to Batman's character, and Bruce Wayne eventually, through supernatural means, decides to he comes back as Batman. It's not one of the greatest stories, but it was one of my favorites because it was kind of when I started really getting into Batman as a kid. Because, and I thought Bane was awesome. Bane is an awesome bad guy. He was a great character. He's a super huge hulking genius of a character that finds a way to take Batman down. In the animated movies, they do a great job of the way they perceive him. In the shit stain of a movie, Batman and Robin.
Oh my God! I thought you were going to talk.
No.
I was like,
no. Batman and Robin. They made Bane look like Bane, and he's an idiot,
big dummy.
It's terrible. Like you can't take somebody like that and ruin the character as much as they did, but they did anyway.
Yes,
I think Nightfall was DC wanted to death of Superman, and they did Nightfall, and it was like we're kind of up in the ante on what we're doing with these characters that everybody is in love and is perceived as invincible and all this, and we're doing that. So I think that's why I put that story in there. I think that was important because of that.
I think the story of that is actually a kind of like how you talked about Tower of Babel. It's an awesome concept because Bane had, like, by showing his genius, he basically has Batman. He sets it up to where Batman fights all of his rogues gallery.
Yes.
I don't remember if it's like in one night or within a couple of days. So Bane basically tires Batman out. And when he strikes to take him out, Batman is like literally like zero energy, like at 0%. And
he's broken the bat.
Yes. And
figuratively,
so
and then he literally does it.
Yeah. And then he snaps him in half. So, and it's literally the entire movie essentially for Dark Knight Rises, but which I liked.
It touches on. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where the basic premise comes from. Number 3, I had The Dark Knight Returns. This is a Frank Miller classic. You've touched on it already in your honorable mentions. You talked about this. There's a lot going on in this story. So basically, this is like post Jason Todd. I think Batman had retired a lot of that because of that in the comic book, is because he couldn't protect somebody and he decided he's not going to be Batman anymore. Fast forward, I think Batman in the comic book is like 55 years old.
Yeah, he's old.
And he's old. And he's like, Gotham is now overrun with, like, it's even worse off than it was before. And Batman basically decides it's time. Well, is it the Mutants? I think it's the Mutants is the group that basically has come out, and they're kind of like running the city and everything. Batman comes out of retirement. And he's saved. It's where we get the new Robin. You're gonna have to refresh me on her name. The female Robin, Carrie Kelly. Saves her. She ends up becoming the new Robin. Joker's like in a catatonic state in Arkham Asylum. He hears Batman's back, and it's like, well, I have a reason to continue on.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great because it really talks about how the Joker needs Batman, and and they've touched on that in the movies too. The Dark Knight Returns was also, a lot of what The Dark Knight Rises was based on, like that Batman's coming out of retirement. He's old. He's broken. He's, there's a lot of that in there. There's the Superman versus Batman in that, where there's a lot of there's the World War III stuff, like you talked about, Portal Maltese and the Russians and Superman has to stop nuclear weapons, and there's a lot going on in that graphic novel. But it's expertly written. It's a Frank Miller book. It's very well done. Like Batman, Bruce Wayne gets outed at the end, fakes his death, money. It's a wild story, but if you get a chance to check it out, like it's one of the greatest ones ever.
Almost like every Batman story takes from that particular movie. Takes from that movie. Batman versus Superman, the movie, it basically wanted to do that. The biggest issue with that is that story is so important because it's Batman after he's done his whole career. He's jaded. Him and Superman had been partners and best friends for years. And then eventually they got to a point where they disagreed fundamentally on what being a superhero is. Superman basically becomes like the number one cop for the president and Team USA, which is a big part of that story.
Yep.
And so whenever they have their epic battle, it's because there's so much like backstory to it. So when they did it in the movie with freaking Snyder's movie, it was like,
Martha.
Yeah, you can't have them hate each other. Like the reason why this, because they did for scene, he's in the same Batman armor in the movie that he is from the comic. It doesn't mean the same because it doesn't have any of the context to it. So
it's even wild. Like it even gets to the point where like Batman's a lot more ruthless in this because he's older and he doesn't give us shit. He doesn't give a shit anymore. But yet it gets to the point where he has the opportunity to kill the Joker, and he's gonna, because he finally gets to the point where it's like, I have got to stop this maniac from killing all these people. Yeah. And then he can't bring himself to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the Joker kills himself.
Yes. And he, like, the movies are incredible. The part 1 and 2. I love that they did part 1 and 2. I also didn't mention they did a part 1 and 2 of the Long Halloween movies that are amazing. Right. But the Dark Knight Returns movies are great. That was probably the first like story. I think I saw the movies before I read the books, which Batman fans will roast me for that. But that was the first time when I was like, holy shit, this is brutal. Like Batman he freaking batarangs Joker right in the eye, and like it's sticking out of his eye, and then he offs himself. It's crazy.
Well, there was a lot of, you and I talked about this off camera, but like we talked about Henry Cavill Superman and like the issues people had when he had to kill Zod at the end of that movie, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's not Superman. Superman's not going to kill anybody. But again, it was like you could argue both ways on that. That version of Batman, the Ben Affleck version of Batman, is very much this character.
Yes,
like I don't give a shit if you die.
Yep,
I'm going to stop you, because that's how that Batman is written. And it's very clear that is this version of Batman, the Ben Affleck version. He's the old grizzled Batman.
Yeah.
Who has the Jason Todd Robin costume in a case. Yep. He's dead, and it's ruined him. Yeah. And that's so, I mean, like Ben Affleck's Batman, they get a lot of shit for that too, because he kills people.
Yeah. Yep.
But that's this version of Batman.
Yeah. Also, like, sorry people, so does Keaton Batman in both movies.
He really does. Yeah. Especially the second one.
Yeah. He freaking just attaches a bomb in a guy's pants. Ben Affleck's Batman suit in Batman vs Superman is my favorite on-screen Batman suit of all suits. So
it's cool.
Anyways, that was your number 2, right? Or
that was 3. That was number 3. So number 2 is Year One. I had Year One and number 2. It's a classic story. Great basically story. It talks about Batman first becoming Batman, right? Like it's the origin of like how that first year as Batman. This is very much what the Batman, the movie, the Pattinson movie is. Yes. That and Batman Begins are very much straight out of this. You have the like detective lieutenant Jim Gordon, like he's not commissioner. He's he's the straight-laced cop in a world full of corrupt ones, just like in Batman Begins. Batman kind of they kind of come to this like buddy kind of deal, just like in the movies where they understand each other. It's a working relationship. It's I don't want to keep going on because we're already so far into this, but like Year One is a great comic. It's fantastic. It tells like all about how Batman's learning to become Batman and what that means. Check it out. And then I'm not going to go into number 1 because you touched on it so much. My number 1 is The Long Halloween. Like when I think about classic Batman stories, it's the one I refer back to, and it's the one I read the most. Like I can reread that multiple times. You talked about the movie, like they did a part 1 and part 2. It's really well done. It's a great story. Dark Victory is good too. It's a sequel to companions. It, and they also take place in like Batman Year One. Like it's very much Year One and Year Two. Yes. Very young in Batman's career, but Long Halloween, I have it number 1. So
I was so worried when we were doing this list that I was leaving all of the books out that you had on your list. So I'm super glad that you had them on them because that means we still got to talk about The Long Halloween, Dark Knight Returns, Batman Year One. Those like Batman Year One and The Dark Knight Returns. Those are when people talk about the 5 or 10 greatest books. Those are always in the top 3. Like
Absolutely.
those are it. So
I think
like,
Dark Knight
every
Returns
movie
is usually number 1 on most of those lists.
And every movie there's something in any Batman movie from one of those movies or one of those shows. So or stories. So
absolutely.
I love that you put those in there. I almost feel like maybe just based on kind of time that what if we saved the next top 5 for the next episode, or
we just want to do one, or do we want to just?
I don't know. I mean, just think about it, because I mean, the next one could be good for the next episode. I know we're talking about it as we're filming, but
I think we should go ahead and do it because I don't think this is going to be a long discussion because people are going to be familiar with these for the most part, and I think we're going to have a lot more repeats, I think, on this list than we did on the last one.
All right, let's jump into it then.
All right, so my top.
I like your list, by the way.
My category. Thank you. I like yours. My category this week is we decided to do top 5 Batman movies, and this is Batman movies of any format. So we're animated's fine, live action, whatever you're into. Obviously, I'm more of a live action guy, but I do think the DC animated movies are very good. There's a lot of very good animated Batman movies. There's a lot of good live action Batman movies. So here's my top 5. I did an honorable mention. This doesn't mean that this is like number 6 on my list, but I want to give a shout out to the Lego Batman movie because it's hilarious.
Yes, I love it. Yeah,
it's a funny ass kids movie. There's tons of different characters in it. It's hilarious. If you haven't seen Lego Batman, it's dumb, but it's funny. So it's good. At number 5, I had The Batman. I had Robert Pattinson's The Batman at number 5. Listen,
nice.
There was a lot of questions about him as Batman. You and I both, we saw this together in IMAX, like when it came out. It's very much the most detective accurate Batman movie, hands down.
Love it. Fucking love it.
I thought Paul Dano as the Riddler was fantastic. I loved what Colin Farrell did as the Penguin. I liked Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. I liked everybody. I liked Robert Pattinson as Batman. I liked Andy Serkis as, I like them all. I thought they were great.
Yeah.
They did it. It
awesome
was great.
Movie.
But it's number 5. I feel like it could be higher. I feel like these are so close. This list is so close. Freaking close. Okay?
Yep.
But I have that number 5. Number 4 is the only animated movie I have on this list, and that
I know what it is.
The Mask of the Phantasm. This was based directly off of Batman the Animated Series. It was a theatrical release, which was kind of like unheard of at the time. And it is phenomenal. You need to see this animated movie. If you were a fan of the animated series and never got a chance to watch this movie, or if you're familiar with the animated series and Kevin Conroy's Batman and Mark Hamill's Joker,
so good.
It's this mystery like villain character, and there's a lot of twists and turns to it, and it's so well written, it's so well done, and it's such a great detective comic as well. It's a very, very well done animated movies, especially because it's from the 90s. But check it out for sure.
It really dives into the psyche of Bruce Wayne and like what it's like to be Batman, but also want to have a normal life and have a love interest, and like does dive into kind of year one for him. It's oh man, it's a great movie.
It's a great movie.
And it dives into basically the origin story kind of Joker as well. So
yes, absolutely.
Kind of.
Definitely worth checking out. I still have the DVD of that too. It's something I'm going to rewatch.
I do too.
Yeah.
Duh.
So number 3, I had 2 movies, and it's the 2 movies we talked about tonight, and it's Batman and Batman Returns. I have at number 3. Like I couldn't separate them. I put them at number 3 together.
Nice.
I just decided I'm just going to have 2 number 3s. I'm not going to go into details because we went into like 45 minutes of detail on these 2 movies on why they're well done and they're so exceptional.
Yeah.
So my number 2 is Batman Begins. And like, I know a lot of people have problems with Batman Begins. I do not. I love that movie so much. We talked about it a little bit before on an episode. I like so much what they did with Batman's origin story. I love the League of Shadows. I love all of the way they did that. I love the way they designed Gotham, and there's the lower level. There's all the crime boss, Carmine Falcone. Listen, as good as that movie is, like and I thought like Scarecrow was awesome. I love Cillian Murphy. I think he's awesome. Peaky Blinders is great.
Mm-hmm.
But man, he might be like the weakest villain in all the Batman movies.
Yes. He didn't hit stride. He didn't hit his stride till Peaky Blinders.
I know, but as cool as he is in that movie, and as cool as he is as an actor, like he's the like one of the out of all these great movies, like he's the most throwaway villain because he's not even the main villain, and you find out at the end, it's somebody totally different. Liam Neeson's Ra's al Ghul is cool. I'm not a big fan of how they changed the ethnicity and all that whatnot. There was some beef with that, but again, it was a cool story. It was cool. Like Christopher Nolan got his hands on Batman, and man, he ran with it.
Yeah, I think it's cool that Qui-Gon Jinn, Liam Neeson, like he got to basically play two main characters of Batman's story of Deckard, who was like. Who in a lot of canon is Batman's, like when he was traveling the world, he was the one who was teaching him like how to become Batman. And he also is an amazing freaking why the fuck am I having a total brain fart of the dragon, the head of the demon, League of Shadows. Ra's al Ghul. God, what is going on? We're getting late. We're almost midnight.
Yeah, right.
He got to play both, and he was awesome. I love that movie more. When I first saw it, I was younger when that movie came out. I mean, maybe junior high or something, but maybe a little bit older. But like when it came out, I liked the movie, but like for whatever reason, I like it way more now that I know like that I'm more versed on my Batman stories and comics and stuff. It's awesome. It's a great movie.
It is. And then number one, I have The Dark Knight. I think it's the easiest one to put there. It's
hard not to. It won awards.
It's so good. It doesn't even need to be a Batman movie. Like it's just a great freaking movie.
Yes, like, it's an awesome movie.
The Dark Knight's a 10.
I agree. I totally agree.
The villain is fantastic. Heath Ledger got, when he was cast, everybody was like, what a dumb casting decision.
Yeah.
And he's arguably better than Jack was.
Yeah.
And
it's,
he's amazing.
It's
every bit of casting in that movie, other than Katie Holmes, we talked about that before, or her and Gyllenhaal. Like, I even like Aaron Eckhart as Two-Face. Like, I thought that was really well done. Michael Caine as Alfred is awesome. Gary Oldman as Gordon is the best. It's such a cool story. It's so much of that is ripped from, a lot of the books we talked about, The Long Halloween, all that stuff. Like it's one of the greatest movies of all time, and it's definitely the best Batman movie, in my opinion. So
I love that. I knew that was the one that I'm like, that will for sure be ranked number one. I have switched my list a couple of times since we've started this episode. But like you said, they're all so close that it's hard not to have. We talked. I'll jump into mine just for sake of time. Honorable mentions. We talked about Dark Knight Returns. Those animated movies are awesome. I think they deserve to be mentioned. Same with the Red Hood movie, but I already kind of touched on them. An honorable mention for me is Dark Knight Rises. I know people don't like it, but I think that Christopher Nolan hit home runs with every movie on main villains. Liam Neeson, Heath Ledger, and I liked Tom Hardy's Bane. I really did. I thought it was great. I like the movie's cool. We talked about kind of Nightfall being like a story. Like, I mean, they literally took that storyline and Batman The Last Stand or Batman so Nightfall leads into a story where
three of them.
Where basically all of Gotham becomes no man's land. Why couldn't I think of no man's land? So it leads into no man's land. And so this Dark Knight Rises is essentially Nightfall and no man's land in one, where Bane breaks the bat, but then it turns Gotham into no man's land where the people can't get in or out. And Batman's got to sneak in to save the day. So I like that movie. I thought fucking Bane was great. But let's jump into it. My number 5 top Batman movie ever. I did have this higher earlier in the episode, but I've moved it around since. Mask of the Phantasm. Paul Dini hit a home run with this movie. Kind of crazy to think the backstory is they knew they were doing a movie for a long time. They didn't know what they were going to do. Paul Dini had actually got like robbed and like beaten up in real life. So he was like going through a lot of stuff and basically like wrote this movie in like a couple of days and was like, they didn't put a lot of thought into it and wrote a masterpiece. Like The Mask of the Phantasm is incredible. My kids love the movie. We watched it a ton when I was a kid. I can hear the music from that movie. It's so good. Number 4, I have The Batman with Robert Pattinson. I agree with everything you said. I love that we finally got kind of a detective Batman movie. I love that was kind of the direction they wanted to go from the beginning. They told us we want to do more of a noir Batman detective. We got good Batman Jim Gordon partnership that we kind of get in other movies, but this really dove in that they're like, it's like a buddy cop kind of thing.
We didn't talk about that either. Like the casting of Jeffrey Wright as Gordon was awesome. He's
great.
A great actor.
It's great.
So, yeah.
Yes. The movie opens up just great, like the Nirvana Something in the Way. Like it's just a perfect version. Like it really goes well with like the main score that they chose to do for the movie. I like his costume in it a lot. When I first saw it, I didn't like kind of the collar thing, but it grew on me quickly. I love that they kind of took kind of the Adam West cowl and made it like more modern and cool. Like if you look at that cowl, that's very much more based off of that cowl than any. He's brutal in the movie. I love that they open up with like the beginning is like he like where everyone's scared to go to the shadows and like the freaking the violins are playing while like it's raining. It's Halloween night. It was awesome. Very much like the Long Halloween vibes. How they kicked that movie off. Yeah, I think if they do another movie that's anywhere near the level of this, this will become like my favorite trilogy. It feels way more comic booky. I love this movie, and if it wasn't as recent, I'd probably put it higher. But my number 3, The Dark Knight. You mentioned it. This movie, it's looked at. Everyone has it as the number 1 Batman movie ever. It is a masterpiece. It's so good. But when I think of like movies that I want to watch, there are different Batman movies that I'd rather put on and watch than this. But it's so good. I love Heath Ledger as the Joker. Like I've talked about this on multiple episodes. Anytime he's in a scene, he's terrifying. You don't know what he's going to do. He goes left when you think he's going right. That's very much the Joker. And I liked that. I thought Two-Face they did really good. I mean, we didn't really get much of like the Two-Face side until the very end. But like the Long Halloween story that they turned into a movie was just, it is perfect. It's a great movie. It is an epic movie. And then we'll jump in. I won't go into too much detail on my number 2 and number 1 because the episode is about them. But these movies for me are, number 2 is Batman '89, and number 1 is Batman Returns. And the only reason why Batman Returns is number 1 is because that was a movie we watched more in my house growing up. That's when we had on VHS. We didn't actually own Batman '89, so I only watched it a couple times as a kid and then really dove in as I got older. But those movies are just so great. They are like comic book Batman in a movie. I love kind of 80s vibes that they've got going. Those are what I kind of grew up on, so I feel like they deserve to be in that place. Very much interchangeable. Dark Knight could be up at number 1 in terms of like, if we were going off the list of like, what is the best movie in terms of like, award winning and cinematography and stuff like that, The Dark Knight's going to win every time.
Sure.
But just like in my heart of hearts, I have to put those movies there.
It's all good, man.
Yeah, Batman Returns is just like, it kicked off my world in many ways, my Batman world, a whole bunch of other stuff. It's a good movie. So
yeah, I cheated when I had them tied. I didn't want to pick one and not the other, but I wanted
I don't
to
think
have.
it's your list.
I know,
Do
but
what you want.
I just, man, yeah. The only one I had that you didn't was Begins.
Yeah, I thought that was
it.
interesting. Well, I don't think that it was a bad thing. I love that you had that in there. I like that both of us had.
Movie.
It's a good movie. It is a good movie. I like that we both had the Batman in there. I wasn't sure if you were going to. I thought you were going to have the Dark Knight Returns cartoon movies in there. Yeah, good. I actually had the Batman at number 5 for most of this episode, and I bumped it up just because as we were talking about, I'm like, yeah, it is a fucking great movie.
It is. That's a lot.
Long episode.
Long episode. Very similar list though on that one. That's why I thought we were going to get through that one pretty fast because I knew we were going to be pretty close.
I think the list changes a lot if we're talking about best Batman and not best Batman movie. Like, I think things get a little squirrely.
Who's the best Batman, like on film or TV or
maybe all together? The fact that we just had a whole episode, and I didn't even really touch on it. You mentioned his name. I should have mentioned it with Mask of the Phantasm. Like, Kevin Conroy is Batman. Like, I assume we'll probably have that in our next episode, so maybe I won't go into too much detail, but like, man, it's hard to have a whole Batman episode and not talk about Kevin Conroy as like seminal. He's up there with Keaton for sure for me.
Yep, 100%. I don't disagree with that. Maybe we'll save that list for next week.
I like that.
All right. Listen, everybody, that brings us to the end of the episode. Thanks so much for watching or listening. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us that like, give us a subscribe, leave a comment, give us your thoughts. If you're listening to us on, go ahead.
I was say thanks for checking out our big Batman episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Episode number 10, double digits. Woo! If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Podcast Index, give us a like, give us a subscribe, hit the bell so you get alerts for when the new episodes drop. You can find us on social media at Movie Dads Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Thanks for listening. We will be back next week for probably my most excited episode thus far. Episode 11. Andy Machete's The Flash. Michael Keaton.
Batman is number 3.
Back as Batman. Ezra Miller.
The Flash, the Batman movie.
Early reviews have already started coming out for that movie. Sounds pretty promising. We'll see what they have in store for us. Until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We will talk to you all later.
Bye.